Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday's edition of Shagalinku TV. My name is Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari, and thank you all for joining us. And thanks to everyone who also will be joining as the program progresses. This is the Tuesday's edition, and we're looking at how we can end violence against women and children. We actually started this conversation Tuesday last week, but because of network issues, we couldn't go on for too long because I was yanked out of the network, and then my guests also at some point also had to leave the network. Anyways, in case you're joining us from anywhere across the globe, the comment section is there. Please drop your comments for us. What you think we can do, we can all do, either as government, as citizens, as civil society organizations, as individuals, to end violence against women and children. It is really, really, really bad, and it's even on the increase. Statistics also show that even during the pandemic and the lockdown, particularly, a whole lot, there was a surge in violence against women and girls, because they all now had to live with perpetrators and all that. Anyway, I've got my two guests here. Like we said, we started off on Tuesday last week, but we couldn't continue. So today we'll be starting out fresh, just asking them again what is their personal views about violence against women and children. I've got Giselle Portenier. She's a human rights a filmmaker, and an activist and co-founder of the End Female Genital Mutilation Network in Canada. And I have Obioma Chukwuike. She's a human rights activist as well, and the founder of Intersex-Nigeria. Together, they'll be rubbing minds with me, and we'll be doing these discussions. You can join us if you're watching right now. Do share the link so that others can join, and drop your comments, either comments, questions for our guests, and they'll be here to answer them as we go on the program. Let me start with Giselle. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Obviously, the human rights of women and children and girls in particular are very close to my heart. So delighted to be here.
Yes, and thanks once again for the patience. It's like 7 a.m. in Canada and trying to drag you out of bed this morning. We really, really appreciate how patriotic you are to us here on the show. We really thank you. I'll come back to you to tell me a little more about what you think about gender-based violence, particularly, and violence against women and children. But let me come back to Obioma Chukwuike, and let's hear a word of greeting from her. Hi, Obioma. How are you doing? Thanks once again for the patience, and thanks for joining us again.
Hi. I'm so glad to be here once again. Last week, the network frustrated our efforts, but we're here again to discuss this delicate matter. And I'm happy to be here and to have viewers from all over the world to join us to have this conversation. So I'm so happy. And to correct you quickly, my last name is Chukwuike, not Chukwuike.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that, Chukwuike. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's come back to the basics. I watched the video, and you guys did beautifully well, trying to lay a background on what violence against women and children is all about and all that. And I sincerely must thank you all for holding forth while the network yanked us off. So she's a woman who is a filmmaker, as a human rights filmmaker, a woman who does a whole lot when it comes to female genital mutilation. I was particularly shocked when I also got to know from you that a lot of FGM cases are, on the rise, and very, very few mention is done about it. People don't also see FGM as a huge problem. For Africa, it is because it also has the health implications, it has sexual reproductive health implications, and a whole lot. But coming from the fact that it also happens in Canada, it's shocking for me. Before I let you talk about what you think about gender-based violence or violence generally, what's your concern about female genital mutilation?
Well, I think for me, female genital mutilation is actually the worst systematic human rights abuse committed against girls and women in the world. And I say that because generally speaking, female genital mutilation is actually committed by entire communities, with the knowledge, with the participation, with the complicity of everyone involved. So that makes it a really huge problem. And of course, for so many years, it was thought that FGM is primarily an African problem, but we now know that not to be true at all. We know now that female genital mutilation is actually an issue in over 90 countries and counting, including parts of the Middle East, including Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, including even Russia, Indonesia, Malaysia, parts of South America, and also, yes, as you said, in Canada, in diaspora communities in Canada and other parts of the Western world. Female genital mutilation is a serious issue. We know that girls are taken away from Canada for what's called vacation cutting, and we also believe that cutters are coming into Canada to do this. So I started the End FGM Canada network because there is a huge silence in Canada, a huge silence. People don't want to talk about this issue. They're very afraid of it. And our network is trying to shine a light on this issue and make sure our government actually starts taking some action. And I know, of course, that female genital mutilation is an issue in Nigeria. In fact, you have in Nigeria 20 million survivors, which represents 10% of the global total. And I believe, it's not enough talked about in every country where it's an issue.
Yes, it's really alarming. It's as we interact with people across the globe, you begin to realize that even when you classify countries as either developed, underdeveloped, or developing, you find that the citizens sometimes go through similar problems. And then you begin to wonder that if a developed country could be going almost the same issue with underdeveloped or developing countries, then it calls for alarm and worry. I'll come to you, Obioma. You are the founder of Intersex-Nigeria, and a lot of times when violence happens, people only look at a spectrum, just a segment of individuals. People barely pay. Even when there are issues affecting women and girls, the intersex, are also people who we kind of just feel they could sort themselves out. Are you not worried as well that a lot of times some of these things are not inclusive? Yes, we talk about a lot about inclusivity, but we know when it gets to the nitty-gritty that when they just put the hierarchy of vulnerable people, they just say women and children in bracket and in an umbrella form. But people are also forgetting that there are intersex people, and they also need to be at the table. How worried do you get every time you also need to talk about this category of people? Just as Giselle is worried about female genital mutilation, because when she talks about it, a lot of people will like, come again, you are in Canada, and I mean, we all think these are basic things that happen in West Africa or Enugu and something. So when you talk about intersex as well, what is the reaction of people when you talk about it?
Thank you so much for that question. And it's something that wakes me up in the night every day. It's because it's alarming. First of all, not that we're trying to just fight and make intersex known, but the fact that people believe that there is only binary sex characteristics in the world, it makes it harder because people don't know that intersex is a sex characteristic. They always feel that maybe it's gender identity or another form of identity. But intersex people are people that are born that don't have the typical variation of female or male bodies, and we have to know that 1.7 population of the world are intersex, and every day an intersex baby is being born. In a birth of 1,000 or 1,005, a birth of an intersex baby happens. And if it happens that Nigeria is a population of over 200 million people, now you calculate it. That means there are so many intersex persons here in Nigeria who don't even know. Most of the intersex persons in Nigeria don't even know they are intersex. They don't even know what's happening to their body, because sometimes when you're intersex, you find out you're intersex maybe at the puberty stage of your life or at the adult stage of your life. Now, when you begin to notice some of these maybe variations in your body that is not as normal as what you see your neighbors or your friends or your colleagues or your schoolmates, and you begin to wonder, and your parents don't have answers for you. Sometimes even if they see it, they want to hide it. Even if they see they don't want you to speak about it to others, they want you to hide it, and you live like that for the rest of your life, except you're able to come to meet with other intersex persons or meet with someone that can help you to go through the process of identifying yourself. So this makes it very difficult here in Nigeria, knowing that intersex people are still very invisible. We are still very invisible, and the work here, sometimes I ask myself, I just hope that we're able to achieve all the objectives as we have as a collective, because it's even alarming because the federal government and the state government are even supporting the intersex genital mutilation. Like the last week in Kano State, the state government sponsored 7 intersex surgeries, and I spoke against it on the radio show, but that's not enough. These policies and practices have to stop. They have to understand that there are intersex people in this population, and they are citizens, and they demand and they should have the right to live and exist freely. They should borrow a leaf from countries like Kenya, who have identified that there is intersex persons and have even put them in their census board. They counted intersex persons in the last census that they did. These are the things that our government should be looking at, not the other way around, of additional surgeries and mutilation that is going to damage the life of intersex persons for life. So that's a point.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Obioma. So yes, our phone lines are free for those who would like to call or send us SMS. It's +234 805438 3460. That's the number you can send a text. For our guests, questions you have for them. The comment section right here is also there. We're streaming live on 3 destinations: on Shagalinku TV YouTube page, on Shagalinku TV Facebook page, and yes, on my personal page, Ambassador Emmanuel Kabari. Thank you all for always finding time to also join us. We've hit 7,000 on our Shagalinku Facebook page, so let's keep it going. I'll come back to you, Giselle. What, in your view, as a filmmaker, how would you see violence against women and children differently? Because when you do documentaries, it needs you to go to the field, to sample people's opinion, not just about female genital mutilation, but also about the power hierarchy, how women, especially African women, still don't have access to education, don't have access to even basic things like health, you know. It is shocking when we talk about sexual reproductive health. Many women don't have access to even the commodities or access to their own health to say, this is what I want at this time, and this is what I want at that time. Or when it comes to, giving birth to children, they just marry them off, even as child marriage or child brides and all that, and then they are made to have more children and all that. What is your view about violence against women and children?
Well, I think violence against women and children is a huge issue, and I have traveled the world and made documentaries in many countries about children's and girls and women's rights, and so it's a big problem everywhere, and it is part of the patriarchy that continues to make it a problem, and this violence includes the lack of education. 130 million girls in the world are not in school. It includes, as you mentioned, girls being married off, forcibly married off at a very young age. You know, every year, 12 million girls under the age of 18 will be married. And as a result, pregnancy complications are the leading cause of death across the globe for girls between the ages of 15 and 19-year-olds. Imagine that itself is a violation. If a girl is forced to be married young and is obviously having sex, which could constitute, can be seen as rape because she's underage, and then she has to go through childbirth as well, and many of them, as I just mentioned, die. So it is a huge problem. 20 countries in the world have marry your rapist law, which basically mean that if a woman is married and the man can persuade her family to marry her, he can escape criminal prosecution. And nearly half the women around the world don't have the right to decide whether to have sex with their partners. It's another violation. In fact, I personally believe that, you know, anything that prevents a woman from fulfilling her true potential as a woman, as a girl, and as a woman is a violation of her rights.
Yeah. I was just trying to sample some of the pictures, or of your programs and your screenings that you did in some countries. I'll come to Obioma shortly to tell us her view of violence against women and children, looking at it also from the intersex angle. But let me ask you this one finally before I come to Obioma. Some of the pictures I showed on the screen, for those watching us right now or who will watch after the broadcast, you did a few documentaries here and there, and you've done a lot of researches. What was the reception like? Because I'm sure looking at it, people will like, why is this coming from a white woman when the issues are much more in the African continent? You know, I'm sure you get that kind of look all the time. So take us through what it is like filming that documentary, the places it got premiered, and then I'll come to Obioma to also talk, because the pictures will be scrolling again on the screen. So take us through the journey of your documentary.
Well, it's a very interesting point you make. Excuse me. You know, I am a white woman, and the documentary that I've made about female genital mutilation is about African children. You know, I believe very strongly that it doesn't matter what color I am or what color you are. I am a human rights filmmaker. I believe passionately in documenting human rights around the world, and I've done so in many, many countries, and I've done documentaries about issues and about people of all kinds of different colors. And I can tell you one thing, that I made this documentary called In the Name of Your Daughter, and it's about children in Tanzania who are running away from home to avoid female genital mutilation and to avoid being forcibly married off afterwards. Those girls, their voices have never been heard in 1,000 years. And when I made the documentary, you know, they didn't care about the color of my skin. They were just really happy that their voices were being heard, and that someone is taking the message to the world that human rights of children, of girls, must be protected, and that they have a right to enjoy their bodies and not to have them mutilated. And, you know, the film has been received very well around the world. And in fact, we had a fantastic opportunity to bring two of the girls to the world premiere in Copenhagen, where they were able to speak at several film screenings, where we took them into schools where the children, the local Danish children, had no idea about female genital mutilation, and where they were so amazed to meet the African children who had shown such courage in running away from their homes and saving themselves from female genital mutilation. And the girls also had the opportunity of meeting the Minister of Foreign Affairs. They had the chance to have a tour of the Parliament building in Copenhagen, something which all of us really enjoyed. So, you know, the film has had quite a big of an impact. We've taken it on village screenings in Tanzania. And in Tanzania, when we had the first village screening, it was such an amazing delight that the next morning, because these were village screenings, and I'm sure you're aware of how entire villages show up for these entertainment events, essentially. And so the whole village was there, and the next day after that village screening, 3 girls came to the safe house, and one of those girls was brought by her own older brother. And I think the importance of that is that we need men and boys to participate as well in trying to stop violence against women. Everyone needs to be engaged, and only if everyone in the community begins to get engaged, the village chiefs, the political leaders, the men, the women, the boys, that's when we're going to have real change.
Okay, thank you so much, Giselle. Let me come to Obioma now and ask again, what do you think about violence against women and children? Last week, 2 of you talked extensively about what violence even is, that it's not just about beating, emotional, could be verbal, it could be denial and all that, so I wouldn't even want to bring us back to all that because we played it on and I got a lot of reviews. In fact, I was feeling bad. Network yanked me from the program last week, but watching those videos, I just learned a whole lot from 2 of you last week, Tuesday. I just sat down, I was watching, if I play that video over and over and over, because people kept also calling that, wow, this is this, they liked what this said, they liked what that said. So when you talk about, I'm also bringing it to narrow it down to inclusivity, because a lot of times when we talk about violence against women and children, I like what Giselle said, that we need men on the table to end violence, and everywhere we go, we realize that men are also stakeholders. And so that brings me to the inclusivity, because we can't say this is just for this person. So as you bring to the fore the issues that people face, how do you relate it each time you go on radio? You have an event where you need to talk about issues. How do you bring issues of violence to the public?
Okay. The issue of violence against women and children is something that happens every day around us, and it's not a situation that we say, oh, I've not heard of this before, I've not seen it before. If you have not seen, you must have heard that a woman was violated or beaten or gone through emotional issues, or a child was violated. It happens especially in developing countries like ours. So whenever I find a situation to talk to people about violence, I always want to let them know that we have to be conscious of our attitude and characters towards people, because we won't just say that violence against women is limited to only when you beat somebody. Most times people think violence against women is only when women and children is only when you beat them or place a physical harm on their body. But I like what Giselle said earlier on, that anything that limits the actualization of a woman's dream and equally children's dream is violence. And I think that is the best definition for me for violence against women and children, because anything you do to a woman or a child, be it denial of education, be it violation of their body, be it not being able to include them in their proper right, medical right or health-wise, is the form of violation. And it's alarming because children in our current time now are being violated even without their parents or their guardians aware of it. I don't know whether we didn't get to hear about what happened the other day, but it was on the news all over, where an actor was arrested for violating a child since when the child was 7 years, and they never found out. It was another person that is not even a family member that found out about that, and before he was arrested. So imagine for 7 years that child has been violated for 7 good years. Imagine the trauma that child will pass through. Imagine the life of that child after that period. Because one thing about violence on people is not just I tell people that violence on people is not just the immediate act, is the after effect of that act on the person, because it has a way of damaging the person for life. It has a way of bringing a lot of stigma and discrimination on the person, and it can limit the person's actualization. It can limit what the person actually wants to be in life. It can take the person backward and put the person in a cage. And it's unfortunate that here in Africa we don't know the importance of protecting women and children. We don't know the importance of making women and children, seeing women and children as vulnerable groups. Like, for instance, a woman that cannot be able to bear a child for her husband is seen as an outcast, is being maltreated. That's violence against that person. It's not when you beat the person. They say all kinds of manner of things to her. The parents of the boy don't want to see her. They keep on making a lot of accusations on her. Or you see a child that is not very bright, and you say a lot of things to the child. You are abusing that child. You are violating that child. You are making the child feel like the child cannot be more than he or she is at that particular time. Even intersex persons, sometimes intersex people get violated in the way that they don't even know that it's violation in their own part. Because some intersex persons, for instance, that have a variation where they don't have a womb to have children, and they find themselves getting married, and because of the way their body is, and they cannot be able to produce children, you see them passing through a lot of violence, abuse from their partners or their husbands or whoever is around them. And it's not entirely their fault, because sometimes the factors that lead to this violence on children and women are not actually their fault. It is what government and institutions should provide for them. That is not enough. If there is adequacy in giving them education, if there is adequacy in providing water, if there is adequacy in providing all the social amenities and infrastructures they need, there will be a better improvement. If you give a girl child or a woman the opportunity to study, to grow her mental and psychological health, and explore what he or she wants to be in life, you will see that woman or the child grows and becomes somebody better than when you limit the person to an environment that they don't have enough. Just as Giselle was saying about female genital mutilation, the same thing goes on for intersex genital mutilation. It is a challenge that even our government is supporting, instead of them to remove their hand from it and bring up policies and laws that will protect their part. How are we going to actualize this goal and objectives if the government are not stepping up? Because the government, for me, should be the people at the top bar, projecting the protection, projecting and improving laws and policies that will make sure that women and children are always first in any situation or in any environment they want to create. They should make sure that women and children are catered for first before even the men. But they don't even bring up the vulnerable people. Intersex people are nowhere to be mentioned in Nigeria. I've never heard anything from anybody talking about intersex people. Instead, what I hear is surgeries that will mutilate them, surgeries that will make them to conform to a particular binary of sex characteristics. So these are the issues we have to start looking at. The government, especially, for me, why I always talk about government, especially in this part of our world, is that the government have a lot of role to play when it comes to protecting the masses, because the citizens look up to the government. What does the government say? Okay, the government says this, I'm going to follow it. But if the government doesn't say anything about it, they'll feel that, oh, that is what is meant to happen. Just like bringing in the boys and the men into this discussion, educating the boy child and the male, that is important to protect the woman. It's important. The girl child. It's important to show them that they are equal. Our parents have made it. Our parents have made it a task that the male child is more important than the female child. So when a boy grows up knowing that a girl child is less, he takes that notion with him, and even wherever he sees a girl child or a woman, like, oh, I'm above this person. But we have to start changing all these narratives. We have to start teaching our boys what they should grow up to be, So these are all the aspects that we also have to look into. So with that, I think
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Obioma. I got some messages here. This one is from Tina in London. It says, "My regards to Giselle. I'd like to ask her what is the support she got for filming those issues on FGM, because a lot of times people don't get to support documentaries that are very educative. They rather support what sells sex and all of that." Giselle, what do you have to say?
You know, first of all, I'd just like to say that, Obioma, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. It's amazing, and congratulations on all the work that you're doing, because I think intersex issues is an issue all over the world as well. And also just to say that, you know, you're focusing a lot on obviously Nigeria because that's where you're from, but the truth is that governments all over the world are totally neglecting the human rights of women and girls are not valued, whether it's in Africa, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's in India, and even in Canada. You know, we are not valued in the same way that men are. And across the world, women enjoy just 75% of their human rights, of the rights that men enjoy. And as you know, in Nigeria, there aren't any state laws against female genital mutilation. And that, I think, needs to change, and hopefully you can do some work on that. So having said that, the question, which I think is a really great question, what support did I have for the documentary? Well, I can tell you it was very, very difficult. And the documentary is still not fully funded. Because for two reasons. One, female genital mutilation is such a difficult topic that broadcasters didn't really want to touch it. So we had an uphill battle trying to get the funding. And in the end, what we did is we had an Indiegogo fundraising campaign that went on for about a month. And every day I would upload some little videos because I had already started to film in Tanzania. So I was uploading little videos and photographs and stories to try and encourage people to donate money to pay for the documentary. And in the end, we did get donations from 400 people in 40 countries. And that helped a great deal. And then we did get some financial support from the BBC and from Danish TV and Swedish TV and so on. So, but it was very difficult, and it continues to be difficult to get the film out there. But I'm so happy that we were able to do it because, as I said earlier, that the girls' voices have never been heard, and many documentaries have been made about female genital mutilation, and they have been excellent documentaries. But none of them actually focused on the girls' voices. And what you see in our film is that when girls are educated about female genital mutilation, what it is all about, what it will mean for them, how painful it is, how they will suffer post-traumatic stress potentially for the rest of their lives, how it can affect their ability to have children, the girls don't want to go through it. And that's the message I try to bring with the film, is that girls' human rights have to be protected, and we all have a responsibility to stand up for those girls' human rights. Doesn't matter what color we are, what religion, what gender, what size or ethnicity. Everyone has a right to stand up for the human rights of others. It's a privilege and a responsibility.
Wow. Thank you so much, Giselle, for that. I'll be coming back to Obioma soon, but Efaso just came in here, and I thought it's an honor to just tear it open and see. I think this is an award that just came in, and just thought I should share it with everyone watching our show. Just got this award this afternoon, right live on the show. So let me see. This is from World Humanitarian Aid and Support Development Forum. Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari, this is presenting to you Exceptional Humanitarian Action Award in recognition of your selfless service to humanity. Thank you so much. This is coming as a surprise live on this show. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, world. Thank you. And there's a medal here, so I'm going to quickly wear this, and just to appreciate the organizers, I thank you. This really came as a huge surprise. Well, we'll talk about this later. Anyways, thank you so much, World Humanitarian Aid Support and Development Forum. Thank you so much. We appreciate this on behalf of Shagalinku. So, Obioma, let me come back to you now. In the hierarchy, I'm going to also ask Giselle this question. In the hierarchy of violence, because a lot of times people just think violence is only when you physically abuse someone and all that and all the norms, In the hierarchy of violence, which do you think is higher and women tend to suffer more from it all? Because you find a situation where a man might say, well, I don't beat my wife, but then he doesn't take care of her. He doesn't give, even when he knows she's not economically dependent or independent rather, he doesn't provide. I know sometimes when we go to the field and talk with women, you find them tell you their husbands dropped 200 naira and he's been gone for 2 weeks. He doesn't care how the kids feed, whether they go to school or not. And I get worried, like, even if you beat that woman, I'm sure she will even appreciate it, that this type of violence you are doing to her. Do you know what it is for a mother to sit with her children hungry? They sleep, they wake up the next day, they don't know where a meal will come from, So what will you think, or what do you think would be your hierarchy of different violence issues when it comes to women and girls? And I will also ask Giselle this.
Okay, for me, the highest hierarchy of violence against women and children is mental torture. Because when you want to, for me, if you want to deal with someone, if you want to violate someone's rights, you don't necessarily even have to do any physical harm. But when it has to do with their emotions, their mental states, their mental health states, it's the entire is the entity of everything about them. So if like the example you just gave of a man leaving the family and dropping only 200 naira for the whole 2 weeks, and I wonder how he expects the family to survive. He's putting that woman through mental torture of thinking, of processing. Now, that being said, this is where, had it been there are provisions for women to improve themselves, probably that woman, if she has a job, this would have been easier for her. If she has a skill that she can use to take care of herself, she might not really feel it that much. So this is why empowerment of women is very, very important. But that's not, I just wanted to chip it in. But so I feel the mental health aspect is the highest of it all, because any violence that has to affect the mental health of someone is very detrimental and can damage the person for a very long time if the person doesn't go through a psychological rehabilitation.
Okay, and what about you, Giselle? Go on.
Well, yes, I completely agree with the severity of human rights violation perpetrated against women with mental torture, because mental torture is a part of so much. It's a part of physical harm. It's a part of female genital mutilation. It's part of so much. I suspect if we're talking globally, the other huge violation against women is domestic violence. This is something that happens in every country. This happens in my country, and as we know, COVID has absolutely worsened domestic violence across the globe, as people have been forced to live in small quarters together. So that's a problem that's really increased in Canada, and I'm sure it's increased all over the globe. But when I think about it, I think probably the greatest violation against girls and women, but girls in particular, is not allowing them to be educated. Because I think the actual answer to ending violence in the world against women, girls, and children is education. educating the girls themselves, educating their brothers, educating society, and going back to what Obioma said earlier about some of the misconceptions that exist in the globe. In some parts, I think this may be something that happens in Nigeria. If the crop isn't good that year, they blame someone and call them a witch. In India, I witnessed women giving birth to girls, which it is not as desirable as giving birth to a boy. And when a woman gives birth to a girl, she's blamed for having given birth to a girl. Well, the science shows that actually it's the man that's responsible for whether or not the baby becomes a girl or a boy. So education is the key to kind of blowing up all these myths. And education is the key to empower girls to stand up if they're being violated and being abused by individuals. And education is the key to actually educate boys and men about respecting the human rights of others, including their wives, their daughters, and their sisters.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really like the angles that two of you are looking at this from. So let's even come to some of the very basic violence that women and girls face. I know we've talked about female genital mutilation. I know we've talked about mental torture. But I really like the point also, Giselle, you talked about when women give birth to a lot of girls, they always ask. In fact, aside just even giving birth to a lot of girls, when there is infertility in the home front, the family always blame the woman, and they hardly will ask the man to join the woman for testing or for even when they go through reproductive treatment. They just heap all the blames on the woman and say she's the cause of it all. So she gives birth to children now and they are all girls. They say it's her fault as well, forgetting that it is what the man gives, that the woman generates on. So what are other angles that we think the beam light, the searchlight is not also looked at when you talk about violence against women? Is there a way we can, maybe I'll come to Obioma first because of this angle. Is there a way we are also not speaking out for widows? Something happens and they keep blaming the woman. She's a witch. She ate up her husband. She doesn't want her husband to live anymore. She wants to take the property, blah, 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 blah. And then the female child inheritance. I know a lot of that is gradually loosening grips, because a lot of girls now are going to court to question that notion that I am a human being. If my brothers have rights to my father's property, then I, as a girl as well, I could file and question these things. And for some women who've done that, they've won some of those cases. So what are some of the violence against women that a lot of people are also not looking at, Obioma? Let's even use starting from the widowhood and the female child inheritance thing. What do you think?
These women being marginalized and not acknowledged globally, it has to, I always look at it that it started with how religion and tradition placed women from the ab initio. If you look at most of our traditional aspects, you will see that women are always placed below. So that is why when, for instance, a woman's husband dies and she becomes a widow, most times the pointing finger is on her, that she's responsible for the death of her husband. And sometimes when people say that, and I look at them, I ask, how do you expect this woman, probably that has children with that man, to be responsible for the death of the husband? Is she going to eat the children? How is she going to take care of the children? Because it's more easier to take care of children when the two partners or two married couples are still alive, So I blame it on the traditional and religion laws and conspiracies that go on in a lot of our environments. They have always said that women are always to be blamed when it comes to the home setting. When something is wrong in a home, when something goes wrong in a home, you always see that the blame goes to the woman. The man doesn't come in, you know. But when we sit down and actually look into all these things, you see that it's actually the man that has more role to play in the course of what happened. So they always want to put the woman as on the chopping board, because they believe that the women should always take blame. You know, you go for village meetings and they are settling a couple's fight, and the next thing you are the cursed woman. You are the cursed woman. If you have done this, if you have cooked well, if you have done this, if you have done that, that your husband would have gone outside. And why must you blame the woman? Why can't you? And the funny aspect of it is that they know the truth. They know that the man is at fault, because sometimes when after they do the village meeting and all that, they still call the man one side and say, oh, you know, this thing you did is wrong. Or because you're a man, we cannot begin to disgrace you in front of that woman and all that. So we have to put the blame on the woman. Now, if we know the truth, why can't we just speak up and correct it when it's necessary? That someone did a mistake or did something wrong and you call out the person, that doesn't take away the fact that that person is a man. It just have to correct and say, oh, you have done this, you have to take these necessary steps next time, not blaming everything on the woman. And when you blame everything on the woman, sometimes the woman even starts feeling like, oh, I'm actually the problem. So you see that, and the religion too will always tell you be submissive to your husband, be submissive to man is always on top, man is always the head. Yes, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be respect, but what I understand, even the same religion says that man and woman should respect each other. It is not only vice versa, but we always take away the part that will not favor the woman and bring in only the part that will favor the man. And these discussions have been going on and on every day. And we are still, whenever the discussion argument comes on, you see it still goes on and it still boils down to men. Men are more superior than women. But if men are more superior than women, then I don't think there is a need for people to get women to be in their circle. Now, why don't you go and get a man to be in your circle if you know that men are more superior than in everything? That we have to start understanding and accepting that women should be equal to men. It's not a matter of who wins. It's a matter of what is right. We have to start doing what is right. It's not about what we want to gain, but what is right. Because sometimes legal things are not right. So I feel that if we can be able to, if the religious and traditional chiefs can start pointing out these systems that have been eating us deep, just as we were saying in the inheritance issue. Before now, most cultures don't allow their female children to inherit from the properties of their late parents. But now women are fighting against it. Women are saying, no, we can't just sit back and watch everything that our parents labeled for go only to the man. Why must it go only to the male children? We that are women. And most times you see that it's even the female children are the ones doing well in the family, but they'll still carry everything and give to the man. You know, and these things that happen, we know, because these traditions were created by individuals. It's not God, it's not any superior being that came to create these traditions for us. We have to sit back and say, oh, over time, this thing has not been working for us. We have to create a new way that works, that is inclusive for both male and women.
Yeah. Okay. I'll come back to you now, Giselle. So as we wrap up, to what on your hierarchy, how do they fall? You know, how do they rate for you when it comes to violence against women and children?
The truth is, I actually don't like to rank them in any particular order, because any violence against girls, women, and children, in fact, any violence against anyone, you know, is desperately wrong. I think that so much of the violence that's perpetrated against women and girls is as a result of a man wanting to control his girl, his daughter, his wife, his mother, his sister, sexually. So it's so much of it is about sexual control. So I think that's one of the things that we really need to work on is to educate people everywhere, Africa, Asia, Europe, Canada, everywhere, that women have the right to bodily autonomy. They have a right to their own sexuality. They have their right to be free from violence and to make decisions for themselves. And it really all goes back to education. We need to educate boys, girls, women, men around the world. And once we get literacy rates up around the world, I think a lot of these things will start getting a lot better, because women will be empowered, girls will be empowered to take charge, to make decisions for themselves, to find ways to escape violent situations and abusive situations. So a lot of it is about education. I think that's the big part of the solution. And then, of course, it's governments having a will to protect their citizens, and it's governments instituting laws. I mean, just think in more than 30 countries around the world, women's rights to move outside the home are restricted. So if you don't even have the right to go outside your home, how are you going to fulfill your full potential?
Wow. That's a really big food for thought, you know. So as we wrap up now, I'd like us to each on maybe 1 minute. What are some of the solutions? I know we'll bring you people back again. We need to also look at a very special angle that we could see again as a part two, what the society can begin to do differently. But, you know, finally, what would be your word of advice and solution to this whole scenario? I'll start with you, Giselle.
Well, you know, I think the solution has to start both at the top and at the bottom. So we need governments, we need individuals who have a feminist agenda, who make it a priority to protect women and girls, make it a priority to bring in policies and laws that protect women and girls. And then we also need those governments and the international community to fund people, organizations, individuals at the grassroots level. Because just have a look, for example, at female genital mutilation. First of all, we need the laws at the top. We need every country in the world where this is happening to make it illegal. We need every country in the world, after they made it illegal, to take action, to prosecute, to protect girls and women from female genital mutilation. And then at the grassroots level, we need to fund organizations such as Robi Samweli, who appears in our documentary and whose passion it is to save girls from female genital mutilation. So we need at the grassroots level to fund organizations that can spread the word, that can educate their communities to know that female genital mutilation is wrong. And I take that only as an example, because I think every other violation against women and girls can be dealt with in the same way, starting at the top with governments and then going to the grassroots to do the work on the ground.
Okay. So let me come to Obioma. What would be your final word of how will you provide solutions to this whole issues as we wrap up now?
Well, just like I've already said a whole lot, but what I want to chip in is, in as much as we are bringing all this education, empowerment, and a whole lot of game-changing situations that can improve the lives of women and children, it is also important that people, especially men, begin to open up their minds to accept this change, begin to call out when it's necessary to call out, begin to teach their children, begin to see it as a change of narrative. Because if men can step up and join, it's going to make a whole lot of impact, because it's this violence we're talking about boils down to, they are the main factor. So if they can step up and say, oh, we have to stop some of this violence against, so we have to stop all this violence, not just some, but all. But they should start by opening up, by being able to change their narrative. Because most times, men and even the government, those are the policymakers, they don't want to listen. They don't want to understand. Not that they don't hear, not that they don't hear all the teachings, all the education, all the educational programs, all the channels that is being used to portray these stories. But sometimes I just feel like they are just reluctant. They just don't want to act. All over the world is the same thing. I just feel like it's time for us to call a spade and say, oh, it's time for us to take actions on this. It's not just saying things, but doing them. Doing action is the most important. If we can hear, let us impact it in our own daily lives. Let us stand up and say we have to start protecting our women and children. Let us begin to provide these things that they need, be it education, be it empowerment, be it creating space for political participation, anything that will make women and children to be on top of who they are meant to be. We should always encourage it. And we should open up our minds to learn new things. We should not just say that, oh, this is what I've known right from time and I can't change my mind on it. You can't change your mind if you want to change your mind. All you have to do is open up your mind, read about it, talk to people about it. There are organizations working on it. There are individuals working on it. There are activists everywhere. There are feminist groups all over the world now working on different angles of women and children. We should step up and open our minds to accepting these messages, not just hearing them, but accepting them is also very important.
Okay, so
well said.
In 30 seconds, yeah, well said. So in 30 seconds, I will give each of you to give your word of felicitations to individuals, organizations, and people who have been of eminent support to the work you do, the things you do. So you have your 30 seconds starting now. So who goes first?
Go ahead, Obioma.
Okay. I also give a big shout out to OI Europe, Organization Intersex International. They are the one of the foundation mentors we had when Intersex-Nigeria started. I want to say that we are appreciative of all the work they have been doing, portraying and projecting the interest of intersex people around the world. And there are many organizations, Astra, Lesbian Foundation for Justice, Frida, a whole lot of them that are supporting. If I keep saying it's 30 seconds, there's much. I also want to thank the United Nations for stepping up to always be there to speak up against all these violations against women and children. And all other big organizations, and especially the grassroots organizations that are working tirelessly, because the impact cannot be made if the grassroots organizations are not there. So all shout out to all the grassroots feminist organizations that are working tirelessly every day to see that women and children are protected. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have Giselle have vote of thanks or felicitations to any organization and individuals. Over to you, ma'am.
Well, first of all, I'm so grateful for organizations and broadcasters who supported the documentaries that I've made. But when you make a documentary, you really rely on the people who are participating in the documentary, because they're the ones that want to make change. So my biggest thanks for my own personal self as a filmmaker is to thank all the people that have participated in my documentary. So that would include activists in Pakistan, where I made a film about honor killings. It includes activists in Paraguay, where we shone a light on the terrible industry to steal babies from mothers and giving them up for adoption in foreign countries. And of course, it includes Robi Samweli and all the girls that appeared in my documentary in Tanzania, because these are people who have been working tirelessly to make change in their communities. And so often their voices have been completely ignored in their own countries. And so the privilege that I've had is to shine a light on some of these issues around the world with the help and elevating the voices of local activists. So I am most grateful for all the local activists around the world that are working tirelessly, as you said, Obioma, to bring a light and shine a light on these issues and to work tirelessly on a daily basis to try and protect girls and women and others from human rights violations.
Wow. Thank you so much. I really want to thank my guests. I want to thank everyone who joined us. And it's been a very wonderful and very great time hanging out with all of you. I know we'll bring you all back. There are so many questions I really need to ask two of you. And we'll just look for time in May to bring you people back again and see what angle of human rights we'll also look at. For you, Giselle, I really want you to talk about some of the challenges that women face in filmmakers. You know, we a lot is heard about male filmmakers, but you know, a lot is also not being. More female filmmakers, I think, are not too celebrated. So I'll bring you back to talk about the challenges that women face in general industry, be it film, be it corporate world, and all that, and how women can surmount some of these challenges. And thanks to Obioma Chukwuike, I hope I got that name right this time. She's a human
Yes.
rights activist, founder Intersex-Nigeria, and to Giselle Portenier, human rights filmmaker and co-founder of the End Female Genital Mutilation Canada Network, all the way from Canada. And thanks to everyone who joined us. And I'm happy that the network helped us today. But I think there's a little hitch here. Some people tried calling me to say they tried sending messages, but they couldn't. But the videos will be here after this program. So please do share. I don't know why people couldn't get across to us to send messages. Someone even dropped on the wall that they couldn't reach us on the comment section. But the videos will be here after the show, and it will be here all through. So do drop your comments there. That will even help us to gather the next set of questions I will be asking Giselle and Obioma. Well, to everyone, thank you so much. We'll be looking at on Saturday, the Saturday's edition, which is 1st of May, and is the Workers' Day edition. We'll be looking at mental health, how we can avoid work related stress, you know, and I'll be having a guest here. And thanks to my two guests, thanks to everyone who joined us. And last but not the least, I want to thank World Humanitarian Aid Support and Development Forum. This award was held on the 24th of April. That was like 3-4 days back. I couldn't really attend because I was also here doing Shagalinku, and so nice of them to have posted this award. I just received it while we were on the show, and I thought, okay, it's no better way for me to share this with everyone. And I dedicate this to Giselle and Obioma. This award says for Exceptional Humanitarian Action Award. I can't be doing this without the support of a whole lot of people. To all the organizations who've believed in me and our NGO, African Focus for Youth Development, to all the networks that I belong, Men Engage Nigeria, Influencer for Change, Search for Common Ground, and very good people like Giselle and Obioma, Barrister Juliet, and a whole lot of them, not to mention so much. Time is really going. I need to go now, but thanks everyone. I dedicate this to everyone who's going through one form of violence or the other. Just hang on. Change will surely come. God bless you all. My name is Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari, urging you to stay blessed and have a beautiful Tuesday. So we'll see you, God willing, on Saturday for the Saturday's edition. Take care of yourselves and bye-bye.